Okay, let's continue the conversation here. Let's bring in Bismarck Rwani, who is an economist and chief executive officer at Financial Derivatives. Let's expand the oil and gas, hydrocarbon industry conversation here. Good morning. So thanks for coming. We're trying. Let's key you into the gas. What's cooking with gas? Why is this very a nasty subject? And the Senate public hearing on gas flaring, $2.5 billion every year. 1 year, 2 years, a decade, 2 decades. That's a lot of money just thrown into the air.
Yeah, but there's what we call associated gas. There's what we call gas that just that is being flared just for environmental reasons. However, I think the most important thing is that today the price of cooking gas is stratospheric in Nigeria. It's unaffordable. And why is it unaffordable? It's unaffordable to a large extent to the ordinary man because you've got to buy the cylinder. The gas infrastructure means that you've got to buy the cylinder, you have to have the stove, and then you've got to buy the gas. In the case of kerosene, all you need is a bottle. But kerosene has a peculiar characteristic. It's what we call DPK, dual purpose kerosene. You use it as kerosene for cooking, you also use it as aviation fuel. So what the suppliers are doing, they're bringing it as kerosene and selling it as aviation fuel, right? And where the price is much higher. Kerosene is probably going at about 70, 80 naira a liter. Aviation fuel is going for about 100 and something. So that's the key issue. That
tells us the story.
It tells you the whole story.
Yeah. Interesting. So this is very interesting. If we can get in original aviation fuel into the country, bring in kerosene and doctor it a little bit.
No, DPK, all you have to do is color it, but there are very strict controls. And so to actually transfer kerosene to aviation fuel, you need to be quite innovative one and risk averse, because it could create all sorts of problems with people in the air. But the solution to this is actually having good refineries and functioning refineries in the country, and that is the key issue that we have to deal with.
That's the key story about our deep dive refineries privatization process. A very long, tortuous history we have here, aren't we?
Yes.
The road we've traveled.
Look, we went through this. First and foremost, we were refined products long in Nigeria. In other words, we had more refined products than we're actually exporting refined products in this country. We actually got to a point where we invested in Hyson in Ivory Coast. We owned part of the refinery in Ivory Coast. However, times changed. But let's go back. The whole thing about privatization, the concept of privatization itself, we had a privatization process in this country on the refineries in 2007. Very elaborate, very comprehensive. Everybody knew it. But then I think Obasanjo signed off on it. And then subsequently, the Yar'Adua administration reneged and got out of it. And that created the current problem we have. Now we have a situation where we want to now privatize the refinery in Port Harcourt through the back door. In other words, we are going to go through a process which is not open and transparent. But before we go into that, let's take a look at what is privatization all about. Privatization is the sale of state-owned enterprises to private hands because we believe, and the general concept is that privately owned companies are much more efficient than government-owned companies. Privately owned companies and competition liberalization makes markets more vibrant, and then consumers will have choice and consumers will have a better deal than having a state monopoly. That is the fundamental reason d'etre for privatization.
Why is it very unwieldy and working for us in Nigeria? 10 years down the line, 4 administrations, isn't it?
Yes.
Obasanjo's administration, Yar'Adua's administration, Jonathan and Buhari. How come in 10 years we've not been able to lift a finger, as it were, as far as privatization is concerned?
Of refineries.
Yes, of refineries.
Well, I mean, you have to go all the way back. Privatization of state-owned enterprises started with the Babangida administration.
The TCPC?
Well, yeah. And it went on. But even before that, you had indigenization, which was Nigerian ownership of companies.
Under Obasanjo's administration as well.
Right. And then you now went for privatization of state-owned enterprises under the Structural Adjustment Program. It's a long journey. Over 500 state-owned enterprises have been sold. But privatization has many variants. You have concessioning, you have public-private partnership, you have outright sale, and you have, the transfer of technology. But privatization is not a Nigerian phenomenon. It started, it goes all the way in Europe, British Airways, British Telecom,
the railways,
French Total, airlines, right? Each of those experiments, most of those experiments succeeded. One, because the core investor had core competence. Two, the process was transparent, and capital. There was capital and transfer of technology and management in all of those cases.
Is it more political in Nigeria? We went through the banking sector or financial services industry privatization, and we did.
But you see, there are two models for privatization. You either go the Russian route, which is started by Anatoly Shabayas, which creates oligarchs and actually leaves the consumers screwed.
At the mercy of the...
At the mercy of these oligarchs. Or you go the normal route, which has been practiced in Germany, Britain, and France, which has been more efficient. But the fact that you privatize does not necessarily guarantee you success, right? There are bad, good, and ugly privatizations. And when you come back to Nigeria, let's take a look at some of this. The best example of a successful privatization in Nigeria has been the Eleme Petrochemical, which was done openly in Indorama, state governments. In fact, Rivers State government is getting over 20 billion naira a year as dividend.
And that was done some years ago.
Absolutely.
Under civilian democracy?
Yes.
Yes.
And it worked. But that model had the local community owning an interest. So with all that restiveness and restlessness in the Niger Delta, there's been peace and tranquility in Eleme because the community gets it. If anybody goes there to do anything crazy, the community will pick you out and throw you away. The state government has a stake, the multinational has a stake, and right across from the road at Eleme there's NAFCON, which was not done. And the difference between is night and day. Now NAFCON is going through the Notore process, which again shows that privatization can be done if there's core competence, if there's commitment, and if it's transparent.
Very interesting question. So why has it been difficult for us to replicate or duplicate or photocopy the Eleme Petrochemicals privatization process?
Well, again, it's the process determines the outcome. Go back to this refinery. This refinery that the Port Harcourt refinery, for example, we have 4 refineries. This has 210,000 barrel capacity, installed capacity, process and all of that. It was originally built by, I think, Shell BP back in the day. Now, if you're going to do this, there's nothing wrong with the names that have been thrown up, ENI, Oando, and all of that. But the process has to be transparent so that the pricing is and the compensation is adequate, and that the Nigerian public gets a good deal. Don't forget that Nigeria needs refineries so fast and so badly now that we must have, there's modern technology. Meanwhile, there are major investors, right? There's one major investor in the refinery process in this country today, in the new zone. And that is a massive commitment of resources, right? And if you are going to privatize the existing refineries, you must give those guys a chance to take a look at it because they have committed themselves, they put their money where their mouth is. And you can't undercut them by making it uncompetitive.
Another word for privatization is sale.
Yes.
So, okay, we're going to sell it. But I'm looking at what point do you think a handshake between the public and the private sector should come in the privatization process on one hand and getting those who want to do greenfield, like Dangote, for example, should come into the equation?
I think the economics of it will determine it. But first and foremost, competition is good for the country. If Dangote is interested, obviously he should be given a chance to take a look at this. But what is important, this is national assets. Dangote is investing in a new field, is putting his own money, putting his own stake there. This is a national asset. Every Nigerian has a responsibility and has a right to know how its assets are being sold, what process, and what kind of characters, what kind of reputation do these guys have. If the Italians